Hello, I'm Nick. I'm a client advisor with the 1916 company. We're here in our New York City lounge with one of my best dressed friends, Tanmay. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Awesome, man. So hey, let's get right into it. I mean, we have a lot of watches to get into, and I figured, as always, we should maybe start with your origin story. Like, what was your first watch? Because I think you're lucky enough to have the first watch you bought.
Yeah, I do. So I was born in India. I grew up in Australia, and I've been living here in the States for the past couple decades. And when I was growing up in Australia, we used to go visit relatives every couple of years in India. And when I was 8 years old, I saved up my money and bought this watch. It's a little robot watch, and it says, actually on it, 1995, and then it says future AD 2018. So clearly they thought 2018 was the future.
Was the future. We're going to have
robots.
Like
the Jetsons flying around. So this was my first watch. I still have it. I can't say I wear it much these days, but it's nice to have as a memento of, regardless of how expensive or not certain watches are, they can still bring you a lot of joy. This one, I'm pretty sure I bought for a couple hundred rupees, which is a few dollars.
I was going to say, you said you negotiated, you talked him down too.
I talked him down, I did. You got to barter. It's the way you do things, So my cousin and I went in and we bartered on the watch, which was great, and I still have it. And it's still, still in one piece, even if it's awesome. A few dollars. So it's lasted multiple countries and moves.
That's amazing.
So excitingly, I still have this one, and I know actually you also have a droid watch from when you were a kid too.
Mine was a Star Wars droid watch and mine wasn't I had one of those, buried memories that came out of nowhere. I didn't have the original one, but found it on eBay for $25, but the same thing, the little robot with I like it too, so.
Yeah, I think it's just something where when you're a child, it helps capture your imagination.
Yeah.
And hopefully as you continue to grow older, you continue to have experiences where watches capture your imagination. And I think, speaking of that, this watch captures that perfectly.
Absolutely.
Because I know in interviews with Max Buser, he's also mentioned that a creative adult is, a child who never grew up. Something like that.
That's his whole, thing behind MB&F is he wants to have fun with his friends. I mean, it's just really making cool things with the people you love, and that's his whole philosophy.
Exactly. I mean, when I saw this too, I immediately, fell in love with it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, having studied engineering in undergrad as well, I really appreciate the time and effort it took into putting something like this together. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, for that price point, the movement, I'm like, come on, just look at it, right? The design and, what he's been able to put into this package for that price point. When you think of MB&F and the six-figure, house level watches that they otherwise provide, this is something that it's really special. It's something for all of the collectors, the people who, I guess in Max's mind, have a kindred spirit with him and his friends, but might not have the funds to be able to purchase something that expensive. This is really the same style of mechanical art. So this is my grown-up version, I'll say, of the robot watch.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, it sort of comes full circle, and you really just obviously you've continued on, and you were one of the lucky ones to get this. You won the lottery. The lottery.
That's
man,
right.
That's amazing. I entered. I didn't win, but I mean, to your point, it's. And really, if you're talking about, if you start getting into the minutia of like what costs what and what is worth what in watches, I mean, or really any luxury product, but watches specifically, I have a Timex, you know what I mean? That runs on a battery that costs $15. So like, it's really about what you love. And it's about the things that make you feel good inside, and that's a lot of what watch collecting is. So it's really cool to see these two sort of connected to one another.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not an exercise in optimization, right? Otherwise, we'd all be walking around with the exact same watch if we all just optimized on particular features. Power reserve and legibility and all these things. And honestly, that's not how I operate. I mean, this watch, if you talk about legibility, I know a lot of people struggle with this, the Zenith Defy Classic. I actually find, in practice, two things happen. One, I look at it and sometimes I just don't read the time because it it fascinates me.
If you happen to have said it that morning,
yeah,
too,
if I
right?
happen to have said it. And the other part is that, I actually, if you catch it in the right light, you see all of these different levels. It's got these cantilevered indices across the dial. And this watch is actually really special to me. I have the bracelet, but I keep it on this super, super soft Barton Bands strap, actually an American company based in Texas. But this watch was actually one that I got from my wife. So I had proposed to my wife at an archery range, which is where I took her on our second date. And when I proposed to her some years later, I put blacklight paint on the target with a little heart on the bullseye and "Will you marry me?"
That's awesome.
And then 2 weeks after that, we were heading to Europe for a friend's wedding, and we were in Barcelona, and I saw a watch ad in the airport. And it was for a store nearby, and I told Jamie, my wife, hey, you know what? If we have some time, maybe we could, go over
browse
there, just browse a little bit while we're walking around.
Window shop.
Exactly. She knew what I was up to and said, okay, fine. If we have time, we'll go there. We ended up going, and I had my eye on this watch for a while, and I was walking around the store spouting off useless watch facts, and I looked at this watch, put it back, and Jamie turns to me and says, do you want that watch? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure, I'll get it at some point, maybe if I get a bonus or something like that, or also, later in the year. And she said, well, you bought me the ring. I wanted to get you something as well.
Love that.
So if you get it now, I'll go in with you on it. And I didn't need to be asked twice.
No, exactly.
So,
you're like, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we pulled the trigger. I bought it. I wore it to my friend's wedding. I wore it to my Sangeet the night before the party, the night before my wedding. So this really holds a lot of special meaning
I love
for
that.
me.
Not really. I mean, especially getting it really feels like it's a cohesive piece. She was with you. You were on vacation. I mean, it's. I love stories like that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I try to create stories behind all the things that I buy. I think the most special one for me is really this.
Yeah, let's get into that, because you mentioned when you were talking about you coming out here and everything that if you only had one watch to talk about, that this would be the watch that you wanted to talk about most. So tell me, what was what the situation behind you purchasing this? What happened?
Yeah, so this is a Frederique Constant classic, Moonphase. And the story behind this is that in my family, we have a tradition where when you start your first job, you buy a present for the members of your family, just as a thank you for them raising you and pouring so much into you.
I have to call my family and tell them about that.
Yeah, start this. I highly encourage everyone actually to do it. It's a really nice show of gratitude, and if you're lucky enough as well to have a family who cares for you and looks out for you, it's a nice thing to do it to repay them, even though you never truly can.
Yeah.
So my brother, who's 7 years younger than I am, he used to watch me do theater when I was younger, the musicals and theater, and it was his ambition to go into acting and theater. And so, me being the oldest child in an immigrant family, I went more not that my parents, they never forced me to be a doctor or an engineer, but I happened to study biomedical engineering. Yeah. So I just, as a typical overachiever, did both of those things. But I enjoy what I do. I actually work in TV and film and in media now. But at that time, my brother would, come sit in the front row, watch my shows, and was inspired to pursue the arts. And when he graduated from college, he had multiple callback auditions, and his first role was actually as Kevin G in Mean Girls on Broadway. So, he really sort of started at the top in his craft. He had worked incredibly hard over so many years, taking additional classes after school and really practicing hard.
Put in the work.
And so what we did is, as his present to me, he knew I was getting really into watches at the time, and this watch, we actually got engraved on the back, Mean Girls Broadway debut, 4818. And it's a Hunter case back, which is also really, very cool. Really fun. But this is one watch that if I didn't have any others, this is the one I would keep. This is one that really represents a legacy to me. My parents both worked 2 jobs to put me through college. I had 3 work-study jobs and scholarships. So I know the sacrifices they made to let my brother and I, have successful lives and raise us to be conscientious people, I hope. And so, when my wife and I have children, it's my hope as well that we do the same for our children, and that I can pass this down as a reminder to them to, follow your dreams and to work hard.
Yeah.
So this is my heirloom, I guess.
That's it's what an amazing thing to start. I mean, it came from your brother, and it is filled with so much love and appreciation, and like taking that and putting it onto what otherwise would be an inanimate object or something. I mean, that's why, and I can see even in the sort of varied collection that you have, and even when you talk about them, every piece has a story. It's not just, and don't get me wrong, if you buy a watch because it looks cool, no problems at all. But like you collect sort of like I do. Like I want to bring it into a momentous, like a milestone or a big moment in my life. And I think part of that is because I won't sell the watch if I have it attached to a piece like that. So I'll get to hang on to it. But I mean, that's going to be with you and your family for generations, and what a cool thing to be able to bestow on your family as you're starting too.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy that aspect of it. I think that the community and the bonds that these inanimate objects can create between people are really something special, and that's where a couple of these actually come into play. I think about the watch on the end there, that Seiko Chronograph. That was actually a present when I graduated from high school. I'm from Pittsburgh, hence it being black and gold, because I chose it when I was 17. And it was actually a year the Steelers won the Super Bowl.
Okay, so you have to.
Yeah, I remember I wore it to my graduation. I wore it on my wedding day, actually.
That's the wedding watch.
Yeah, it was a present from my father, and I've worn it throughout the years. I remember that year we were in the school cafeteria, and it was extremely loud, and our school police came in. And like, what's going on? And we were all just, on the cafeteria tables, waving our terrible towels and everything. And the funny thing is, I remember that the police took their terrible towels out and joined in. So it has really fond memories associated with that. Seiko, I've bought a bunch of, Seikos and things since, but that's one that whenever I look at it, I get very nostalgic about those times.
And it's never leaving the collection, and that's, and having those little, throughout your day, if you're moving one piece or walking about the house, I have the same thing too, but you see it in the watch box and you go through all those memories in your mind, and it's such a cool sort of re-up as you go about your life and remembering certain, life events that brought you there. Yeah, it's very cool.
Absolutely. I think that, the more I get into this hobby, the more I meet really cool, interesting people.
Well, you and I met each other through, we're in a watch club. I moved to New York and had no friends. I was just friends with my girlfriend and her friends, and I found the watch community, and now I have, to your point, I've got a lot of friends here that I talk to and get to hang out with, and it's the reason why you and I are here together.
Yeah, exactly. You know what, and that's a really important point you make, because I think a lot of times people don't realize how difficult it is, especially in a really large city, to make new friends.
Yeah.
I'm not originally from New York either, and coming into a large metropolis where you might not know anyone, there's only so much you can do going to bars and things and having deep conversations
Everyone's
with
so
people.
anonymous here, it's like a flash, like the continuance of the relationship too, because you'll meet a lot of like one night friends, but then it's the making the call afterwards and going to dinner and going to events and things like that.
Exactly. So that community aspect is so important. You make friends, you go to each other's birthdays and weddings. I remember a friend of ours who it was her birthday, and most of us there were her watch friends, which I don't think she expected. But that's just how the community is. Yeah. This watch actually represents what's best about the community to me. So shout out to Complecto and Jason for starting that. But I remember that this was part of a conversation that I had with him several years ago, and that a few of us had about representation in watches as well, in the luxury space, where you want to create a community where people can feel themselves, right? You don't have to bring crazy expensive watches,
Yes.
feel free, you know,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
if you
We
have
all
it,
love
go
to see
for
them,
it.
but
Yeah.
definitely
But at the same time, you know, there needs to be space to have, to meet everyone where they are.
Yeah.
And so that's really something that Jason has created with Complecto, and this watch in particular with Bulova. I remember they actually had us at the Empire State Building at their headquarters, and one of the few companies that fed us real food, like actual, you know, burgers and sandwiches and stuff. So that'd be a lesson to all the watch brands out there.
Invite people in, need to bring food.
Yes, you got to feed people. You know, that's very deep in my culture as an Indian. You got to feed people. My mom's always doing that. And so, you know, it's really important. And that watch is just something really special. It's a 262 kilohertz, so it almost has like a spring drive-esque smooth sweep.
Smooth sweep, so it looks like it's a mechanical watch, but you get the quartz accuracy.
Yeah, beautiful design, and that watch and several others as well. I have the bracelet for, and I switch in and out depending on the season and how I'm feeling, if it goes with my outfit. I'm sure there are not too many outfits you can pair with a bright orange strap, but you know, you make it work. But that's really one that's special to me because it reminds me of the community and you know what's best in the community. I think sometimes, especially with luxury products, you can encounter some gatekeeping in the space too. So I think having this accessibility and people being able to share their stories about why these are special to them, you know, a community like that, being part of a community really makes a difference.
And it can feel like, if you've been in it for so long, and you know, we go to events and we each know 40 people that are there, and we have this sort of group of people that we know through this. But if you think about it, watches it's not the largest community in the world. So to gatekeep or to prevent somebody who's obviously interested in these things from experiencing it in the same way that we do, or feeling connected to each other in the same way that we do, I don't think makes sense. Like if someone is genuinely interested in these and wants to learn more, or just be a part of the conversation, like why not have the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, there's more that all of us can connect on rather than what makes us different. At the end of the day, when you find someone in the collector community, you're generally going to find something to talk about, and even the views that you have that are different, maybe your watch preferences. I know for a lot of these, several of them are dress watches. And that's not exactly the most popular style of watch these days.
I don't think I have any.
Yeah, exactly. Case in point. But the thing is, you and I can chat about our interests and why that's the case and what is it about our lifestyles that has led to that. And I think you just get a richer understanding for the person.
I agree.
And you can connect more. I wear a watch to express myself. It's really, to me, about what does the thing on your wrist say about you. For me, it's really about self-expression. At the end of the day, it's really art. It's really a vessel for people to tell their stories and to express themselves. And so my favorite part of watch collecting is really the community and the friendships that you make.
So you and I talked about at the beginning of the video that you are one of my best dressed friends, and it's not just because you typically wear suits, it's that they are very curated. I mean, they're all very individualized. I mean, every time I see you, I'm impressed by the combination of the tie to the pocket square to the jacket. So how does that, you mentioned earlier you have quite a few dress watches, so I imagine the way that you dress every day does have some impact on how you purchase. Like, do you look, what goes into your mind when you're buying a watch? Do you buy the watch first and then style it afterwards, or do you buy certain watches specifically for certain outfits?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think one of the things that I find when I'm interacting with people as well who are not as much in the watch community is that I'll sometimes be looking at a watch with someone and they'll say something like, oh, I don't really like that watch. Like, I don't like that strap. I'd never wear that.
I hear that all the time. I'm like,
you can easily swap that out, right? But to the layperson, it's not conceivable.
Yeah,
right?
It is how it was born. You can't change it.
Exactly. Like that's how it is. And I think when I got into style, it was actually I was always looking out at what I wore because I used to play cricket when I was younger.
Okay.
And I remember when I was in the under 10s league, like little league, I made this incredible diving catch, and my coach called us all over, and he said, "Tanmay, great catch, but look down at your clothes. What's wrong with them?" And I looked down, and at the time, my mom would iron my clothes, and I would always forget to give them to her, so they were really crinkled. And he said, "Never come to another game without having your clothes ironed."
Wow.
And in front of the whole group. And then I found out later, to my horror, that he actually had told my dad, "We're collecting money in a hat, but you don't need to contribute." My dad was like, "What?" And my coach said, "Yeah, we're gonna buy Tanmay an iron." And I was mortified when I heard that story from my dad. That night, probably, I think I went home and I learned how to iron.
That was the moment.
That was the moment. My parents called my coach. So thank you, Mr. Longhurst, decades later, for inspiring the style journey. But my parents called him and said thank you for that, because he would always forget. I would tell him, and he would, not pay attention. So it was the little kick that I needed to pay attention, and also how important it is, how your first impression makes a big difference with people, and the fact that the way you express yourself, the way you present yourself, is also a sign of respect to others. It doesn't have to be a suit; it could be jeans and a t-shirt, but just making sure that you're put together in a way that expresses you is also showing to the rest of the world that, hey, I care about you, and I care about how you see me, because you have to look at me.
Conscious of other people. It's not just about you. It's about your interactions with anyone else.
So that was critical. That set off my journey. And after business school, I actually went to London. I started learning about the history of style. And to your question about whether I choose the watch first, or I think about how I can style it, it's the watch, and I know that I will be able to style it. I have enough confidence now in my ability to, swap out a strap, or just, use it as an accent piece, that I can make it work with an outfit. I have changed the straps on multiple of these watches. This one, actually, I'm the most proud of.
I was like, that's a pop of color for sure. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, not a lot of people, I think, would think that they could style this. Right?
I love purple watches from afar, but like me owning, every time I'm about to pull the trigger, I'm like, but would you really? Like, it's a hard one to style.
It's tough, but this is a wonderful watch, and I've been a fan of Nicholas, another Nick. Nicholas Bowman Scargill for many years. I've followed his journey since probably about 2017, which was, I think, the year after he refounded his ancestors'
it was
company.
In the family, correct?
Edwin Fear had founded the company, ran for many generations throughout the 1800s and 1900s, and then Nick, he restarted his family's watch company. I think it was over a Sunday lunch or a Sunday roast that his mom told him that he had a watch company in the family. So I really admired it as well, because when COVID hit, he took a job, night shifts at Asda Walmart, so that he didn't have to lay off the employees that he had just hired. So that, I think, is real dedication to your brand, doing the right thing by people. So I had my eye on this for a while, and I actually had the pleasure to meet him a couple of years ago at Wind Up Watch Fair, and I bought it from him right then. And I switched the strap out, actually, because I have the bracelet and I have the original straps that come on, but I wanted to get this little suede to also tone down the purple a little bit, make it a bit more versatile. And it was actually a story where I found this strap on Analog Shift, and I was actually living close to James Lambden at the time, and I said, "Hey, do you have any of these? I think they might be sold out, but could you let me know?" And he replies back, "Hey, they're sold out, but why don't you just swing by?" So swung by.
Happened to have one. Fell off a truck.
Yeah, we ended up chatting, having a drink for a while, and he said, "You know what? I actually have one from the samples. Here you go." And he just gave it. And again, to the power of the community, these kind acts that are not necessary but help bring the community together. Those are the things that stand out to me. Like, how many people have a strap that has a story? But
and even the story behind the watch, like and this might be my own philosophy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you don't typically, there's certain exceptions, but you don't typically go into a watch saying, I'm going to buy this watch because of the CEO of the company or because of this person. Like it does for a lot of, especially mainstream brands, you can feel disconnected from the makers, and like you buy the watch for its own merit, you know, how it looks on you, how it feels, like other, you know, physical specifications and all that.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is such a great experience when you get to have that with somebody like an independent watchmaker, a small brand. Like you get to feel a lot better having that connection with them, feeling sort of more. It's more of a special watch. It's more of a special interaction, and owning it. I feel like when you also respect, to your point, him working working late to keep his employees there, I would feel good buying that watch.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to have that kind of connection to the person behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, those are the types of things that really inspire me. And when I look at those watches, I also want to be inspired that, hey, this is the way that I hope to live my life as well, right? There are things you can learn and take from everyone. That's one of the reasons too why I went down the road of getting the Daniel Roth. And I bought this several years ago before the recent independent boom. So I got it for a steal. But I love the design. You know, I had wanted to get a gold dress watch, go with my outfits as well. But I had really landed on that design, the big date, the way that they do it as well, where there's like a little Roth inside the zero.
Sort of like the Cartier, the Cartier.
So, you know, that watch, actually, I reached out to, you know, both Mr. Roth and the folks who now manage his brand, JDN, and also to Bulgari, because this is actually from the era in the early 2000s where Bulgari had taken over Daniel Roth and Gerald Genta. And I found that it was really the best of both worlds, where it was an early Bulgari production, but with only Daniel Roth branding. So it kept all of the design elements of Daniel Roth, true to the way that he used to produce watches, the same ellipsocurvex case, the hand-engraved rotor, but with the benefit of having, you know, a large company like Bulgari be able to service, or that crystal is not a very common shape.
No, absolutely
so
not. Yeah.
If anything happens to that, you know, being able to go to Bulgari and say, hey, are you able to service this or replace it? So I get the little taste of vintage or neo-vintage design, but with, you know, modern specifications.
And when you're talking too about their resurgence as well, I feel like lately they've been doing a fantastic job with the brand. I mean, we all know and love Daniel Roth. Like you said, it's unique, but it's not, you know. I'm thinking of like the Roger Dubuis, some of like the really crazy sort of case styles. Like this is unique, it's different, it's clear from across the room, but it's not something it's so out there that it's difficult to wear. But I think that they've been doing a great job with the brand and what they've been putting out lately, and that's, you know, a testament to how much more popular they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a fun shape, a fun design, and at the same time reasonably understated, like you said, across the room. You know, it doesn't scream at you.
You said Tim told you never to sell it.
Yes,
you tried to sell it to me. You tried to trade it in.
Yes, at one point actually, it's for another watch, which is also on this table. I was contemplating, you know, trading that in, and you know, decided against it. And when you hosted our watch collector club at Ballykinwood, we actually had brought some of our watches with us, and I had put this out on the table with everyone else. And Tim walks over and he picks it up and he says, "Whose is this?" And he looks at me and he says, "Never sell this." So I took that to heart. So I haven't sold it. And actually now I never would, because I wore that on the day I would have been married during COVID. So we had a legal ceremony at my wife's parents' place, and that's actually the watch I wore on that day. So I would not. It's technically. The good thing is, I guess, if there's silver lining, I have multiple wedding watches because I had multiple weddings. So to the same person, I will asterisk. But yeah, the good thing is now there are multiple opportunities to have, you know, special events tied to these watches. So I did wear that the day of the day we legally got married. So
Brilliant.
That is also not leaving the collection.
Good. Brilliant.
And also because Tim said so.
Yeah. So then let's talk about the j.l.c. So
Yeah.
I think that pretty cool guy sold you that watch.
Yes.
But
Yes,
so
indeed.
and you traded in. What did you trade in? You traded in an
So
Omega
I wound up
Seamaster.
selling my Omega Seamaster
Yeah.
Professional. I had that for some time, and it was actually also a special watch to me because it was the night I met the watch crew. And shout out to Watch Club Society. But I found that in wearing it, I had also wound up with a lot of blue and gray watches, sports watches. I have a Ming, I have this, I have a whole bunch that they were starting to take up the same space.
It's easy to fall into that.
Yeah.
When you find what you like. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
exactly. And I also found it was a little bit sharp, the bracelet too, which I actually found with the bracelet on the Zenith, which is why I often keep it on this silicone strap, rubber strap. But that's the only watch I've ever sold.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I generally, and the good thing is I actually sold it to another member of our watch club.
Awesome.
So I knew it stayed within the family. And that one, I knew I wouldn't have worn it as much. And sometimes it's time to move it on. But otherwise, I've never sold any of my watches. But that was all in service of being able to add this. And we had become friends through our watch club, and I had reached out to you. And this watch actually I had seen many years ago. It was we'll call it a grail of mine, and I waited maybe 2 weeks to think about it, and it disappeared. And I didn't see it again for years.
Wow.
And then I saw two on the on the WatchBox website, now 1916. But I saw two on this website, and I immediately messaged you and said, hey, do you still have this? And you said, yes, we do. And we were able to make a deal work on it. And I actually brought my wife down to Philly. She had never been to Philly, actually, and so we made a little trip out of it. So we came down, we stayed in Philadelphia, we came out and stayed in Ballackinwood for a night. I came out, I got a nice tour of the WatchBox HQ, and picked up the Reverso, and that watch I love. I love the the design of it, I believe the rectilinear case as Tim calls it. So as a former engineer, I really appreciate the mechanism that goes into making that case work. I actually met a j.l.c. watchmaker a couple of years ago, and he had mentioned to me how difficult it was to actually construct this. And that this was actually one of the watches that he personally would have purchased. And I really enjoy it. I love the symmetry of the dial, the design. I also love looking at my movements.
I feel
most
like mine
of
would
these,
be movement side up most of
exactly.
the time.
Most of these watches have open, or many of these watches have open case backs. And I love looking at the movements, and how many times do people joke in the watch community that, I would wear it upside down, right? You can. Right? So you can wear this upside down, and I often do. I often just keep it flipped to this side. Actually, I wear it here. I know you're
left-handed.
Left-handed.
Right,
Interestingly, I'm not left-handed.
Really?
Yeah, I actually wear it on my right hand also because of cricket. Because when I grew up, my batting stance was to keep my watch protected. So I batted and wrote and everything right-handed. But it's actually where I got used to wearing probably a G-Shock or something at the time. I don't think I would have worn this playing cricket, but that's actually how I got used to wearing a watch on my right hand. So a lot of people think I'm right-handed, but I actually do it by choice. And the funny story is my wife does the same thing. So she's right-handed.
Was that your influence, or did you guys just come together already?
No, we came together and we discovered that about each other and fell madly in love over the fact that we wear our watch on the on the same
It's the little things that grow,
it's
man.
the little things, you know, the little kernels that develop into full-fledged romance. So
it's interesting to me as well that you mentioned cricket also, because that was the first purpose-built sport watch. I mean, obviously the one with the exposed case back, but that was, you know, I believe it was
for
polo, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it really, you know, nowadays is you know, more my dress watch, and no one would really take it playing sports. But the point was that you could. So it was definitely a purpose-built watch, and I think it's also an example of not having to stick to categories or putting things in buckets all the time of, oh, well, this is a sports watch, this is a dress watch, you can only use this for this scenario.
They're so personal.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, why are we telling other people what to do and where to wear it? I mean, it's so personal that it shouldn't be that always.
Yeah, so, you know, wear it whenever you'd like, and, you know, I get so much enjoyment out of that watch, out of all of these. They're really watches that when I look at them, I think about the time and effort it took into making them, and that each watch and each watchmaker is on their own journey as well. You know, some of the things too I hear about when I look at the Frederique Constant, it has very clear design references from Patek. But you know, if I were to get those equivalent Pateks, I would be adding several zeros to the end of the price tag. So you know, finding things that speak to you, that allow you to connect. That allow you to connect with others. I think these give me a glimpse into not only understanding the soul and the spirit of the watchmakers who created them, but I like to think it also helps me understand myself more and allows me to express myself more.
That's incredible. I mean, that's what the collecting journey should be. I mean, that's really incredible to hear. I love seeing, I love seeing the manifestation of all of these moments in your life and all these feelings and hearing about them as well. So maybe one last thing. What's next? What's next on the radar? You know, maybe, you know, life events. You know, I know you're building a family. You just bought a house, but like, what's the thing you're thinking of next on the horizon?
Yeah, you know, I like to be surprised by watches. I usually, you know, let them come to me. But I think there are a few brands that have really caught my interest over the past several years. One being Moser, another being Beauvais. And Vacheron. So I think the three of them, surprise, known for their dress watches. But I think that those three are really brands that that also resonate with me. Whether in their creative spirit, a little bit of irreverence maybe with Moser, but it's just certain things about them that really touches something in me. So I think likely one of those. But again, I like to remain open.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it is when you get it.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for stopping
Thanks
by.
for
Thank you so
having me.
much for coming in and showing us all these watches. It was such a pleasure having you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was my pleasure and it was my honor.
Awesome.